All right, Ogden Clark grew up in, pretend you didn't hear that the first time. Grew up in Bradenton, Florida. He attended the University of North Florida and received a BA in political science and public administration in 2006. After graduation, Ogden worked on electoral campaigns as a political strategist in and around Washington, D.C. In 2011, he returned to the Bradenton area to work with Manatee County Habitat for Humanity as their outreach coordinator until January of 2015. He now works with Manatee County Information Outreach Division, a part of Manatee County Government's administration. As a communications coordinator, he serves as a liaison to the community, sharing information on transportation, maintenance, and other capital improvement program projects. So please welcome Ogden Clark.
Thank you very much, Kelly. So good morning, everybody. My name is Ogden Clark, as Kelly introduced me. And I'm here today to talk to you a little bit about how we use ArcGIS Hub to really connect with the community, and a lot of the GIS tools that we've used and try to bring out to the community and how they've been useful, both in the policy making for our leadership and how they've been helpful for the folks that are working within our departments. Also presenting with me today is Mike Holt. I am not a GIS professional. As you heard, I have political science as my background and communications is my background, but Mike is the GIS specialist, and I know we're going to get some questions. And he'll be able to tell you kind of about the back end stuff. I'm the front end guy, so you get to see all that stuff first. What do I click? All right, so Manatee County, Florida. It is known for its beaches. We have a beautiful, beautiful set of preserves that you can come and you can visit. Most of you are from the region here, so you know about this kind of thing. But you know, we're home to our spring training, baseball, all that stuff is in Manatee County. And our relationship with Esri kind of goes back many years. We have 13 departments that, when you think about it, you have GIS people in each one of those departments. Even if they don't necessarily think that the data and the information that they work with is necessarily GIS, us GIS folks who know that start to grab that data and can really do some really amazing things with it. Some of the other things are that we really didn't go into an enterprise agreement until 2017. So that really opened the door for our usership. We, before that, were limited to a few licenses and things. So you didn't have a lot of people within the organization getting involved and learning about some of the tools. So that was one of the advantages to going into that enterprise agreement. And then in 2022, we started using ArcGIS Hub. And that's really what I'm going to be talking about in the presentation today, is how that tool has been utilized. So why did we start using Hub? Because we had a good problem. It's the kind of problem that some people complain about, but it's a good problem, especially when you're in government, is that we were growing. We're growing nonstop. Now, if you look at this map or you look at these charts and you think, wow, he pulled numbers from 2010. He doesn't know what he's talking about. There's actually a reason why I pulled this statistic. Because if you look at Manatee County, they're talking about a 46% increase in population. And this is, again, from the 2010 census. By 2040, we're supposed to be at 500,000 people. Well, here is that increase. We saw that 40% increase in 10 years. It's not 2040 that we grew to almost 500,000 people. It was in a 10-year period. So you can imagine the need for infrastructure. What do we hear out from the public is about traffic. We're hearing about, you know, you guys are overdeveloping. So you start to get into this realm where the information that people want to get or that they want to see is actually the type of information that we work with every day. So to kind of reinforce that, many of you who work with different jurisdictions, you may be familiar with the capital improvement plan. That's basically something that's required statutorily so that we have a plan for how we're going to deal with infrastructure. And as we grow and we build more houses, you got to make sure you have sewers, lift stations, all the infrastructure there to support that, schools, all those components. And so we do our CIP on a 5-year cycle. what happened in 2022 that kind of changed that a little bit was that we got the American Rescue Plan money. Many communities here in Florida did. And once we were able to get and tap into those resources, the amount of infrastructure that we had and what was built in there expanded exponentially. The amount of projects went up. And then we also started talking about doing what we're calling fast tracking, which is like a design build, and basically saying these projects are so important that they need to be done in 2 to 3 years versus the normal 5-year cycle. So now we've got a lot of pressure. We've got projects that people in the community don't know about. They don't have any information about. And we know that it's going to impact them some way. So how did we use Hub to address those things and connect with the public? So the first thing that I'll talk about is we've got to show a couple different examples and ways that we've used it. Some of the other presentations that we'll give later on today, we'll look at some other ways that we've done and how we've used it. But for this is really just kind of the overview and looking at these little touch points and ways that we've done. And so on this slide, really, you're just seeing, I'm going to try to highlight some of the ways that we've used it both for our projects and how we've been able to get some transparency and get people talking about what's going on in their neighborhood or infrastructure projects, and then how we've been able to take that information to the Board of County Commissioners, and they're able to make policy decisions based on what they're hearing from the community. So as I said, our first goal of implementation was to take Hub and to create project sites, especially for those 6 projects that we knew were going to be in a 2 to 3 year build cycle. So that being said, we knew that we needed to be able to communicate with people. And one of the biggest problems county government has with their websites and the way that we communicate is if you come to the county website, you might just be looking for information about one project, or you might just be there because you want to know where you can pay your water bill. Very, very simple stuff. You're not really there to understand everything that's going on at the county level, right? So what our goal is to get those type of projects and that type of information out to the people who want to consume it in a way that gives them none of the other noise and things that they don't care about. So with these project sites, what we were able to do with ArcGIS Hub is you create a user account as a member of the public, and you're able to follow the pages. So you can say, hey, I really care about this project. This is a project that's going to impact my ride to work in the morning. This is something that is going to be life-changing for me. So I want to follow this. I want to know what's going on. So we started showing the design process. We started showing about right-of-way acquisition. For those that don't know, that's where the county government comes and will buy property from people, because if we're going to widen a road, we need to be able to do that. And in the process of doing that, we were able to communicate with the public and have an audience of people that really cared about that project. They were the people that, typically might come down to a county commission meeting and complain and say, and cause what we would call like bad press. We don't want bad press. So this was kind of to meet it head on, to provide the information. The link is up there. You can visit it right now. You can check it out. We have even more projects than those 6 that are on there now. And we have an audience of something like, I think it's 200 and something people that are following several of those pages. So it has been very successful. Another thing that happened when we were getting ready to roll out the project sites was we got a demand, kind of unplanned. We had a sidewalk that had been requested 10 years ago by the school board. Everybody that lived in that neighborhood either forgot about it or was different, and they started to see the work starting on a sidewalk, and they said, hey, what's going on? They started to complain, and the county commission asked us to look at it, to start to engage with the public and say, hey, is this sidewalk still something that people want? So with ArcGIS Hub, we've already got some maps, we've already got information about what's happening with the project. We were able to also add in a survey using Survey 123 from their application, be able to ask people, did they want a sidewalk or not? And what's really interesting is that that's where we take our responsibility and we give it to the elected officials, and we're really just giving them the information. So what was interesting was the path of this sidewalk is where you see all these red dots. All the green dots are where the sidewalk wasn't going, but the people in the community wanted it. So I didn't want that job. I know Mike didn't want that job. We let the board decide, and they ended up not building that sidewalk. But as you can see, that's real-time information. That's the information of the people that are there in that community and making good decisions based on what they're seeing. And you know, you save several $1 million when you do something like that and put it behind a project that the community actually wants. So, Mike, you want to talk a little bit about maintenance and some of those operational type things?
Yeah. So, good morning, everybody. Again, I'm Mike Holt. I did not submit my background, so I apologize. A little about myself. I did 20 years in the Coast Guard active duty. While I was in the Coast Guard, that's where I first got introduced to kind of geospatial intelligence and GIS. I got my bachelor's in intelligence studies and wound up getting my master's because I loved it so much in GIS from Johns Hopkins University, and continued my relationship with Johns Hopkins as an adjunct faculty member teaching WebGIS and spatial analytics. I came into the came into Manatee County immediately after the Coast Guard and just really loved it because of how forward-leaning Manatee County is in GIS, which you're going to hear from us a couple more times today, so you'll see definitely how we've integrated that with everything. So moving on into operations and maintenance, new insights. Operations and maintenance, CIP, anything that's dealing with budgetary considerations. Obviously, as you can understand, there's an ebb and a flow to it. What might be the priority this month isn't necessarily going to be the priority next month. There's emergencies that pop up. There's initiatives, whether it be from our elected officials, from the constituents of the county. Things are constantly changing. With that, having a kind of a dynamic portal or interface for that is a prime example. These pavement management is probably the best example because, I mean, I would say I have the gentleman here today that's responsible for updating those maps, Jeremy. I mean, but it's almost on a weekly basis that projects are coming on, dropping off, getting shifted over to the right a couple years, things like that. It gets really hard to kind of constantly be producing product, getting pushed out. So instead, having a dynamic map like this, where coming in, updating an attribute is pushing it out to all your dependencies, all your web maps, all your web apps, everything that's kind of forward looking. What we enjoy about Hub is, I mean, just as the name kind of indicates, it brings you into a central repository for that you can then branch out and find all this other information. So it's a great spot to kind of keep putting your information in. And rather than having that phone tree sort of down the rabbit hole of a website where you're like, I don't even know how I got here. I better bookmark it, but a lot of our customer base, they just don't. They're not going to remember that path. They're not going to remember how they got there. Sometimes your search algorithms aren't the best. I know we're constantly dealing with that as we evolve our website and our organization. So Hub kind of takes that guesswork out of that, and we're able to constantly push out our updates with regard to tree trimming, ditch cleaning, things that are constantly shifting for us based off of budgetary needs and priorities. Well, yeah, so this one, this is kind of a teaser. We are talking about our communications as relates to emergency weather and storms. This is obviously right now, we're still getting a brief. We got a brief about an hour ago about the storms incoming or potential. So we have this ongoing right now, and we're spinning this up. But we found this to be a fantastic way to consolidate all of our information. I would say prior to this year, Manatee County GIS really was kind of compartmentalized and siloed. A lot of really great analysts, but everyone kind of working on their own tempo and their own beat. We did a much better job this year of kind of consolidating and forming almost like a super team, you know, if you will, and getting all GIS on the same page. But what we realized very quickly was that we had all this critical information, but siloed in all these little nooks and crannies and corners that were really hard to kind of get to. So our extreme weather dashboard, our Hub site, it's really turned into something incredible. It's pretty awe-inspiring. Like every time I look at it, it's like how much information we have in there, and the scalability is really something to marvel at. So we'll be talking more about that later on. I don't want to give too much away because I want you guys to stay here for that. So.
Yeah, don't go anywhere. The last thing that I wanted to talk about, and you know, like Mike was saying too, you deal with that. It's managing the public's expectations, especially with those maintenance projects and things. People just like to know when there's going to be somebody outside trimming a tree or doing work in their road. The calendar project that I wanted to highlight, we did in 2023. Our calendar had a QR code for each month that you could scan on, and we tied the hub site to that. And I just showed an example on here. One of the things was McKechnie Field, or now it's called Lecom Field. You're looking at it. Many of you are probably familiar with the Esri swiper tool, where you can go back and forth and see the aerials from before today. You're looking at what the baseball field and what that looked like in the 1940s versus what it looks like now. But that rollout in the calendar was all about spring training and all those kind of things. But you can do some really cool things, get people engaged, and then you get them to your site that way too. So it's just one creative way to do that. So final considerations, just some things to think about. If you decide to go back and say, hey, I love this idea, maybe we should do something like this. You still want to keep in mind that it's only going to be as good as the content that you put into it and the people that are spending the time on it. As Mike said, during a storm, it's easy because you've got a lot of people. Their attention's on it. They're focused on it. My biggest problem, I'll say it right now, is our project sites. Because we have 14 or 15 different project managers and 256 or so infrastructure projects, it's really hard to stay on top of all of that information and get it updated. A lot of times it is somebody calling me and saying, hey, this doesn't look right, or this roundabout project says you're not building a roundabout, something like that. But really, the other thing, limitation-wise, is that community buy-in. So while we still got a pretty good audience of people following it, it's very hard. Even people that would come to meetings for these projects and things didn't mean that they went home and followed it, even though we told them and said, hey, this is how you can stay up to date about the project. You literally can't go and grab the phone and like force them to do it. So that's one of the things that we've discovered, and we've tried to come up with some creative ways to get people to do it. And then really just, the scope of your CIP program. So if it just keeps increasing, you just keep getting bigger, that's one issue. And really, you're going to be kind of limited by how many staff you have. One of the things that I had before was like, I was the only person doing PR for the projects. Now I've got some help, and we built that a little bit stronger. But what we like about Hub, why we think it's really empowering people, is that it gives a tailored experience to whoever that user is, whoever that person is. We'll talk about it more, how you can tailor that to the back end people. If you want somebody that's working with you to come there, or you want an elected official to go there and sit down, if they're logged in, they could be looking at totally different data. It could be the same map, but they could be looking at different data and those type of things. So that's what I really like about Hub. It doesn't mean that I have to have 6 different websites. I can have one website. Everybody can go to the same website, but if they're logged in, they'll see different things. And then that is, in a nutshell, why we like Hub. Are we on time? Good. Are there any questions, either here or online?